The street was almost empty. It was late at night, and most of the shops had already closed. The only sounds were the soft buzz of streetlights and the distant hum of cars on the highway. A young man walked slowly, his hands deep in his pockets. He was tired, hungry, and almost broke, in fact. All he had left in his wallet was just $3. 3 lonely bills that could not buy him much. He thought about food, rent, and tomorrow. But none of those problems prepared him for what he was about to see tonight. He stopped under a flickering lamp. That was when he noticed movement ahead. A figure stood at the corner, half hidden in the shadows. At first, he thought it was just another late-night walker, maybe someone waiting for a taxi, but then he realized something was strange. The figure was taller than normal, too tall, and the way she stood perfectly still, like a statue, sent a chill through his body. As he came closer, the figure stepped forward. It was a woman, or at least, she looked like one. Her clothes were torn, dirty, and wet. Her long hair was tangled, sticking to her face. But what caught his eyes were not her clothes or her hair. It was her eyes. They glowed faintly, almost like the screen of a phone in the dark, not bright, but unnatural enough to make his heart race. She looked directly at him. Her lips trembled as she spoke, her voice soft and broken. "Please, can you help me?" The young man froze. He had nothing to offer, nothing except $3. Even if she asked for money, he could not really help. But she did not ask for money. Her voice cracked as she begged, "Please, let me shower at your home." The young man's stomach tightened. This was not normal. Strangers did not ask such things in the middle of the night. Every warning in his head told him to walk away, to say no, but there was something in her face, something desperate, something almost human and not human at the same time. Her glowing eyes looked weak, tired, and in pain. She looked like she had been running for a long time. He tried to speak, but his words came out slow. "Why? Why me? Why my home?" Her answer was quick, almost too quick. "Because you are kind," she whispered. "And I cannot go anywhere else." The night air felt heavy. The young man looked at his wallet, at the $3 he carried. He thought about how small and useless that money was. He thought about how powerless he felt. But then he looked back at her, this strange woman with glowing eyes, standing under the flickering streetlight. And against all reason, against every instinct that screamed danger, he nodded. "All right," he said softly. "Come with me." The woman lowered her head, almost in relief, for a second. He thought he saw her eyes dim, like a machine shutting down. She followed him silently as they walked. Her steps were not loud. In fact, they were too soft, almost like she was not touching the ground at all. The man kept glancing back. He wanted to ask questions, but fear kept his mouth shut. Finally, they reached his small apartment. It was nothing special, just a single room with peeling paint and old furniture. But to her, it seemed like a safe place. She looked around carefully, like every detail mattered. When she stepped inside, the light from his old lamp touched her skin, and that was when he noticed it. Her skin was not right. At first glance, it looked normal, but when the light hit it, it shimmered, like metal hidden beneath a thin layer of flesh, like wires and circuits buried under human skin. His heart jumped. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to move. She turned to him slowly, her expression unreadable. "Thank you," she whispered again. Then she walked toward the bathroom, her steps smooth, too smooth. The young man stood there, frozen. His mind was screaming, "What have I just let inside my home?" From behind the closed bathroom door, he heard the sound of water. The shower turned on. Steam filled the small place, but mixed with the normal sound of running water, he heard something else, a low crackle, like sparks of electricity. His body tensed. This was no ordinary woman. This was something else, something beyond human. And she was now inside his home. The young man looked at the $3 in his wallet again. They felt even smaller, even more useless now, because no money in the world could explain what he had just seen, or what was happening inside his bathroom. He took a deep breath. Whatever this woman was, whatever she wanted, one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Asterisk, the sound of water filled the apartment, but the young man was not calm. He sat on the edge of his old chair, staring at the bathroom door. Every drop of water echoed like a drum in his head. This was not normal. No stranger had ever entered his home before, and certainly not someone like her. He rubbed his face with both hands. "What am I doing?" he whispered. He could have walked away. He could have ignored her, but instead, he opened his door. And now an unknown woman with glowing eyes and strange skin was showering inside his tiny apartment. He stood up and walked slowly toward the bathroom door. Steam leaked from the edges, carrying the smell of hot water and something sharp. Not soap, not shampoo, but a faint metallic scent. Like iron, like burnt wires, it made his chest heavy. He reached out, his hand hovering over the door. Should he open it? Should he ask her to leave? His mind screamed yes, but his heart whispered no. Before he could decide, her voice cut through the sound of water. "You are afraid," she said from behind the door. Her tone was not angry, not soft, just plain like she was reading a fact. The young man froze. He had not spoken, yet she knew. He swallowed hard. "Who are you?" he asked. There was silence for a moment. Then her voice again. "Someone who should not be here." The answer made him step back. His chest tightened, his breath quickened. He thought about calling someone, maybe the police. But then another thought hit him. If she was not human, if she was truly something else, would anyone even believe him? And worse, what if bringing the police made things worse? The bathroom door opened slowly. Steam poured out, filling the room, and she stepped out, wrapped in a towel he had left hanging. Her wet hair clung to her neck, water sliding down her face. Her skin shimmered faintly again, catching the weak light. But now he saw it more clearly. Beneath the layer of human skin, there were faint patterns lines, almost like circuits. He blinked, shaking his head, hoping his eyes were playing tricks. But the truth was right in front of him. She looked at him, her glowing eyes dim but steady. "You let me in," she said softly. "So now you must choose." He frowned, his voice shaky. "Choose what?" "Whether I stay," she replied, "or whether I leave, and you never see me again." The room felt colder. This was the decision, the turning point. If he told her to leave, maybe life would return to normal. But deep down he knew nothing would ever be normal again. He could see her trembling, not from cold, but from exhaustion. She was hiding something, something big, and yet, behind the strange glow and the machine-like skin, he saw fear, real fear, the kind that only living beings feel. He sat down again, his legs weak. His voice came out in a whisper. "Why me?" Her head tilted slightly. "Because you looked at me without hate," she said. "You looked at me like I was still alive." He froze at her words. There was no trick in her tone. No manipulation, just truth, raw and heavy. And that truth pulled him deeper into her mystery. She sat down on the floor across from him, her towel wrapped tight, her eyes never leaving his. "I am hunted," she admitted. "If they find me, they will kill me, and burn this place so no trace remains." His stomach dropped. This was bigger than he imagined. Not just a lost stranger, not just a woman in need, but something that could bring danger to his world, his street, his life. He looked at his wallet again. The $3 sitting there like a joke. What power did he have? What protection could he offer? He was nobody, and yet, she came to him. Out of everyone, she came to him. He clenched his fist around the bills. They felt like paper, weak and useless. But his voice came out stronger than before. "You can stay," he said, surprising even himself. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of relief crossing her face. "You mean it?" she asked, almost like a child. He nodded. "I don't know who you are, or why you're here. But if you're telling the truth, then I won't throw you out." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, almost hidden, but it was real. That simple smile made the air feel lighter. Even with the storm of questions in his head, he had made his decision, and he knew there was no going back. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the window. The night was far from over. Something was coming. Something he did not understand yet, but for now, the choice was made. The strange alien woman would stay, and his life tied to hers had already begun to change forever. The shower hissed behind the thin bathroom door. Steam rolled out from the cracks and spread through the small apartment. But the young man knew something was wrong. This was not the sound of a normal shower. Yes, water was running, but mixed inside it was a sharp, electric crackle, like wires sparking, like machines trying to breathe. He sat on the old couch, his fists tight, his heart hammered in his chest. Every second felt longer than the last. He wanted to believe he had done the right thing. He wanted to believe she was only tired, only lost. But the sounds from that bathroom told a different story. Suddenly, the light above the bathroom flickered. Then the lamp in the living room buzzed. The television turned on by itself for a second, then died. The young man stood up fast. His eyes locked on the bathroom door. What was she doing in there? Then he heard her voice, low, shaking, almost broken. "Do not be afraid," she whispered from behind the door. His breath caught. How did she know what he was feeling without even looking at him? Her voice came again. "I am repairing. I am healing." The door creaked open, and the steam poured out like a fog. Through it, her figure appeared. She stepped out slowly, her hair dripping water down her shoulders. Her towel was wrapped tightly around her. But her arms, her legs, her neck, they were no longer just human. The water had washed away parts of the disguise. And now, under the soft light of his apartment, he saw the truth. Her skin was split in places, not with wounds, but with glowing lines. Thin cracks of silver light ran across her arms, circuits like living tattoos, pulsing faintly beneath the human skin. Something metallic glimmered, something alive but not flesh. The sight made his knees weak. She looked at him and spoke softly. "You see me now." He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Finally, words stumbled out of his mouth. What are you?" She lowered her head, water dripping onto the floor. "I am not from here," she admitted. "I came with others. But I did not stay with them." He took a step back. Fear and curiosity battled inside him. "Others?" He whispered. "There are more like you." Her glowing eyes flickered. "Yes," she said, "but they are not like me. Not anymore." She touched one of the glowing lines on her arm. Her fingers trembled. "They want to erase me, because I ran, because I chose to live." The young man stared. His small apartment suddenly felt like the center of a storm. He was a nobody, a man with $3 in his wallet. And yet here stood a being from another world, a fugitive, hunted by her own kind. It made no sense, but it was real. The sparks, the glowing skin, the broken voice, it was all real. She took a slow step toward him, her eyes softened, no longer sharp. "I needed water," she explained. "Water helps me hide, helps me cool the system inside. Without it, I burn." The man swallowed hard. He wanted to run, to push her out, but at the same time, he couldn't ignore the look in her eyes. It wasn't the look of a machine. It was the look of someone desperate, someone scared, someone alive. "You should not trust me," she whispered. "I bring danger to your door." Her words sent a chill down his spine. Danger, what kind of danger could follow her here? But even as fear dug into his chest, he heard his own voice say, "You needed help." "So I helped." She looked stunned for a moment, as if those simple words were something she had never expected to hear. Then she closed her eyes, almost in pain, almost in relief. "You are different," she said softly. "You're kind. Your kind should not be kind to me, but you are." The young man stood there in silence. His mind raced with 1,000 questions. Who were they? Why was she running? How dangerous was this? But no answer could prepare him for what came next. From outside the apartment, faint at first but growing louder, came a hum, low, steady, unnatural, not a car, not a plane, something else. The woman froze, her glowing eyes wide with alarm. "They are searching," she whispered. "They are close." The man's stomach dropped. He ran to the window and looked out. At first, the street looked normal, empty and dark. But then, high above the rooftops, he saw them, strange lights moving in the sky. Silent and fast. Too fast, too precise to be anything human. He turned back to her, her skin glowing brighter now, as if reacting to the presence outside. "They will find me," she said, her voice shaking, "and if they find me here, they will not let you live." The room felt smaller, tighter. His $3 in his pocket meant nothing now. Money, work, hunger, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the decision he had already made. She was here, and he had chosen to help her now. He had to face whatever followed. Outside, the lights grew closer. Inside, the air buzzed with tension, and in that moment, the young man realized he had let something into his home that would change not only his life, but maybe the fate of the entire world. The apartment was silent. Silent except for the low hum outside. The young man's breath fogged the window as he watched the strange lights drift slowly across the night sky. They moved too perfectly, stopping and starting in ways no plane or helicopter ever could. Every movement made his chest tighter. Behind him, the woman stood still, her wet hair clinging to her shoulders, her glowing eyes fixed on the ceiling as if she could sense every vibration in the air. "They are sweeping the area," she whispered, her voice low and sharp. "They will not stop until they find me." The young man turned to her. Fear burned in his gut, but curiosity was stronger. "Why?" he asked, his voice louder than he meant. "Why are they hunting you? Who are you?" For a moment she said nothing. Her face was unreadable. Then she lowered her head, and when she spoke again, her words carried weight. "I was a soldier," she admitted. "Not human, not from this world, but a soldier of my people." The young man felt the room spin. A soldier. He was standing a few feet away from a trained alien fighter. His mouth went dry, but he forced himself to listen. She sat down on the floor, crossing her legs like a child. Her towel clung to her body, steam still rising from her skin. Her glowing lines dimmed slightly, like a machine in low power. "When I was created," she said softly, "my only purpose was war. We were bred, built, and programmed to fight, to follow orders without question, to erase anyone our masters called the enemy." The young man stared at her. Her words didn't sound like a story, they sounded like scars. "Created?" he asked. "So you're not natural?" Her glowing eyes flickered. "Not the way you are," she said, "but I am alive, even if they deny it." She pressed her palm against the floor, as if grounding herself. "On my last mission, I was sent to destroy a colony. I followed orders, until I looked at the faces of those I was ordered to kill." Her voice cracked. "They were innocent, unarmed, just like your people here." Her fingers trembled against the floor. "In that moment, I refused. I broke the chain. I ran." The young man's skin prickled. This wasn't just any soldier. She was a deserter, an outlaw, hunted not because she was weak, but because she had chosen not to kill. "And now," she continued, her voice shaking, "they will not rest until I am erased, not only because I disobeyed, but because I carry something they cannot lose." Her words made him lean forward. "What do you mean?" She met his eyes, and for the first time, her expression hardened. "I carry knowledge. A code. A design that could end their war forever. If they lose it, they lose control. If I keep it, I live with a target on my back until they find me." The young man's throat tightened. He looked around his tiny apartment, the cracked walls, the broken chair, the $3 in his wallet. He was nobody, and yet somehow, his home had become a hiding place for something worth more than planets. His voice came out small, almost broken. "So if they find you here, they'll kill me too." She nodded, no hesitation. "Yes," she said, "and everyone near you." The weight of her words pressed on his chest like stone. He should have felt regret. He should have wished he never opened the door. But instead, he felt a strange fire inside. Fear, yes, but also something else, anger. Anger that someone could be hunted for choosing mercy. Anger that his world might be caught in the crossfire of a war it never started. He clenched his fists. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice sharp now. Her eyes softened again. "Nothing you cannot give," she whispered. "Just a place to hide." For now, her answer shocked him. He expected her to demand help, demand loyalty, demand sacrifice. But she only asked for shelter, for the smallest piece of safety, and somehow, that felt heavier than any demand outside. The hum grew louder. The lights above the building shifted closer. The young man pulled the curtain shut, his chest pounding. Every instinct told him to throw her out, to save himself. But when he looked back at her, sitting there with her glowing scars and tired eyes, he knew his choice had already been made. He sat down across from her. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "You can hide here." For now, her eyes widened slightly, a glimmer of surprise, then she lowered her head, almost like a soldier saluting. "You will regret this," she whispered. But her voice carried something else too, a flicker of hope. The young man leaned back, the sound of the hunters above rattling in his ears. He had no plan, no power, no money. But for the first time in a long time, he felt alive, and as the hum outside grew louder, he realized this was only the beginning. The truth was out, and now his quiet life was over forever. The sound came first, a low vibration that rattled the glass of the apartment window. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't wind, it was something deeper, heavier, like the heartbeat of a machine too big to see. The young man pressed his back against the wall. His breathing was quick and shallow. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But there was nowhere to go. This was his home, and outside it, something impossible was moving closer. The woman sat perfectly still on the floor, her glowing eyes fixed on the ceiling. "They are here," she whispered. Her voice was calm, but her body was tense. The glowing lines on her arms pulsed faster, reacting to the presence outside, like her very body knew the hunters before her mind did. The young man peeked through the thin curtain. At first he saw nothing, only the dark street below, but then, like shadows peeling away from the sky, he saw them. 3 shapes hovering above the rooftops, not planes, not drones. Something stranger. They were black, sleek, and silent. Each one carried a faint red glow at its center. Like a burning eye, the glow swept slowly across the street, scanning, searching, and when the red beam touched the ground, the asphalt shimmered like it was being read. His throat tightened. They weren't looking for someone. They were looking for her. And his apartment was right in the path of their search. He turned back to her, panic in his voice. "What do we do?" "They'll see you." She stood slowly, her towel still clinging to her body, but her posture was no longer weak. For the first time, she looked like what she claimed to be, a soldier. Her glowing eyes hardened, her chin lifted. "There is no hiding," she said. "Only surviving." The young man shook his head. "I can't fight them. Look at me. I don't even have a weapon. I don't even have more than $3 in my pocket." His words cracked with fear, but the woman stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "You have more than you think." He didn't understand. Not yet. But there was no time outside. The red glow swept across his building. The windows rattled as if invisible hands pressed against them. The young man dropped to the floor, heart pounding, through the glass. He saw the beam pause for a terrifying moment. It lingered on his window, then moved away. "They know," she whispered. "They will come inside." The young man felt his stomach turn. He wanted to shout, to curse, to run, but instead, his eyes landed on something small, something stupid, his wallet, lying open on the table. Inside it, the 3 wrinkled bills stared back at him. $3, the last proof of his old life. A life that no longer existed. His chest burned with anger. Not at her, not at himself, but at them, these hunters, these machines. These shadows from another world who thought they could just erase him because he was in their way. He grabbed the wallet and stuffed the bills back inside. It wasn't a weapon, but it was a reminder. He might have nothing, but he still had himself, and he wasn't going to surrender his life without a fight. The woman watched him, and for the first time since he met her, her face softened. "You are not like them," she said quietly. "You are more dangerous than you know." Before he could answer, The sound outside shifted, the hum grew sharper, closer. And then, the building shook. A beam of red light cut through the front door like a blade. The lock melted, the wood cracked. The young man stumbled back as the door swung open. And in the doorway stood something that was not human. It was tall, armored, its body black and smooth like polished stone. Its head was faceless except for a single burning red eye. Long arms ended in sharp, claw-like tools. It moved with perfect silence, scanning the room with its glowing eye. The young man's legs almost gave out. This was it. This was the end. But then the woman stepped forward. Standing between him and the creature, her glowing lines blazed brighter. Her voice sharp and commanding. "I will not go back," she said. Her words were not just sound, they vibrated through the room. The machine paused, almost like it recognized her defiance. The young man's heart pounded. He didn't understand what was about to happen. But he knew one thing. The fight had finally arrived at his doorstep. Asterisk, the red glow from the hunter's eye cut across the room. It scanned everything. The peeling walls, the broken chair, the trembling human. But it stopped on her. The woman stood tall, her glowing lines burning brighter than before. Her voice was calm, steady, full of defiance. "I will not return," she said again. The hunter tilted its head, silent, calculating. Then it stepped forward, claws flexing. The young man's breath caught in his throat. He grabbed the nearest thing he could, a rusty frying pan from the counter. His hands shook, his heart screamed that this was madness. But he lifted it anyway. "Stay back," he shouted. His voice cracked, but it echoed in the tiny apartment like a war cry. The hunter did not stop. Its glowing eye narrowed. And then, the woman moved. Faster than he could follow, her arm flashed, and a burst of light sparked from her hand. The hunter staggered, sparks flying from its chest. But the blast was weak, unstable. Her glowing lines flickered, she gasped, stumbling back. A young man caught her before she fell. Her skin burned hot like a machine running too long. "What's wrong?" he asked, panic flooding his voice. She shook her head weakly. "My system is damaged. I cannot fight for long." The hunter straightened again. Smoke rising from its armor, it was hurt but not destroyed. It took another step, its claws scraping the wall. The young man's mind raced. They couldn't outrun it. They couldn't outfight it. So what was left? He looked around his apartment. Old wires hung near the television. A broken fan sat in the corner. Batteries from a flashlight rolled under the table. All junk, all useless. But maybe not. An idea sparked in his mind, something reckless, something desperate, something human. He helped her sit against the wall. "Can you fix your weapon?" he asked. She shook her head, sweat or maybe condensation running down her face. "Not alone," she whispered. "I need parts, power." He grabbed the broken fan, ripping out the wires. "Like this?" Her glowing eyes flickered, surprised. "Yes," she said. "That could connect." He didn't wait. He pulled batteries from the flashlight, stripped the wires. The hunter stepped closer, its heavy feet shaking the floor. But the young man ignored it. His fingers worked fast, clumsy but determined. He taped wires, twisted metal, shoved the batteries together. Sparks bit his skin, but he didn't stop. The woman's eyes widened as she watched. "You adapt," she whispered, almost in awe. "You're kind. You build from nothing." The young man forced a grin through his fear. "Yeah, well, nothing's all I've got." He shoved the mess of wires into her hands. "Can you use this?" She nodded, her glowing lines pulsing brighter as she pressed the device against her arm. The wires fused to her skin like veins. Energy surged through her body. She gasped, her back arching, then her eyes blazed like fire. The hunter raised its claw, ready to strike. But the woman lifted her arm. The wires glowed. The batteries screamed with heat, and a blast of raw energy exploded from her hand. The hunter was thrown back, smashing into the wall. Its red eye flickered violently, then went dark. Smoke filled the apartment. The young man coughed, waving the air. The hunter's body twitched, sparks raining from its chest. But it was down, at least for now. The woman collapsed beside him, her body still glowing faintly. He caught her before she hit the floor. Her voice was weak but steady. "You saved me." He shook his head. "No. We saved each other." For a moment, the room was quiet. Only the crackle of broken wires filled the silence. The young man stared at the mess of tools and parts scattered across the floor. He had no training, no weapons, no money, but somehow, his cheap human junk had kept them alive. The woman looked at him, her eyes softer now. "They will send more," she warned. This was only one. A scout. His stomach twisted. If that was just a scout, what would the next wave look like? But before fear could crush him, she reached out, placing her glowing hand on his arm. "You are not weak," she said firmly. "Your people, your kind, are dangerous in ways my kind never understood." The young man's chest tightened. For the first time, he saw himself not as a victim, but as part of something bigger. He nodded slowly. "Then let's make a plan." She tilted her head, curious. "A plan?" He smiled faintly, his fear mixing with stubbornness. "If they're coming, we won't wait for them. We'll be ready." The woman studied him for a moment. Then, for the first time, she gave him a true smile, not weak, not broken, but proud, and in that smile, the young man saw something terrifying and thrilling. A glimpse of a war much larger than himself, and the chance that maybe, just maybe, humanity could stand in it. The apartment was broken. Smoke curled from the fallen hunter, wires sparking across the floor. The young man's chest heaved as he pressed his back against the wall. He could taste metal in the air, sharp and bitter. Beside him, the woman leaned weakly, her glowing lines dimming with every breath. "This won't stop them," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but her words cut sharp. "They will send more. Stronger, faster." The young man nodded, his hands trembling. "I know," he said. "That's why we don't wait for them." He dug through the wreckage, pulling wires from the broken hunter. Its armor was heavy, black and smooth, but its insides were alive with strange parts. Sparks jumped as he yanked one glowing coil free. The woman frowned, confused. "What are you doing?" He gritted his teeth, his fingers raw, making something worse than a frying pan. Piece by piece, he tore into the machine. Every part he didn't understand became something he could bend, twist, tape. He grabbed old batteries, bits of metal from his kitchen, wires from his dead fan. He didn't know what he was building, not exactly, but he trusted his stubborn hands. And the woman watched with wide eyes. "You're kind," she murmured. "You turn weakness into weapons." Outside, the low hum grew louder. The window rattled again as shadows crossed over the rooftops. Not one this time, not three, but a swarm. Red lights cut across the sky, sweeping in patterns like hunting dogs on the scent. The young man's stomach dropped. "They're coming," he whispered. The woman's glowing eyes narrowed. "Then we finish this." Her voice was steady now. She pressed her hand to the coil he had pulled from the fallen hunter. Her lines glowed brighter, feeding energy into it. The device hummed, shaking in her grip. Together, human scrap and alien power fused into something unstable, something dangerous, something new. The building shook as the hunters descended. The front door burst inward, and this time it wasn't one. Two hunters stepped inside, their red eyes blazing, claws clicking against the floor. The young man stood beside her, clutching the half-built device. His throat was dry, but his voice came out steady. "You picked the wrong planet," he said. The hunters charged. The woman raised her hand, the device flaring with unstable light. The young man slammed the last battery into place, and together they unleashed it. A wave of raw energy roared through the room. The walls cracked, the glass exploded. The hunters were thrown back like broken dolls, smashing through the doorway. The young man staggered, his ears ringing. The device sparked violently in his hands, ready to blow. "Throw it!" The woman shouted. He hurled it out the shattered window. A second later, the night split open with light. The explosion lit the rooftops like fire. The hunters outside reeled, their red eyes flickering in panic. And for the first time, they retreated. The swarm of black shapes pulled away into the sky. Silent, Fast, afraid, the apartment was quiet again. The young man collapsed to his knees. Coughing through the smoke, his hands were burned. His arms shaking, but he was alive. The woman knelt beside him, her glowing lines fading to a calm pulse. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "They will not forget this," she said. "They will tell their masters what happened here. They will tell them that humans are not weak." The young man laughed weakly. He pulled out his wallet with shaking fingers. Inside were the same 3 crumpled bills. $3, all he had left. He stared at them and shook his head. "Crazy," he muttered. "I started this night with nothing, and now the galaxy thinks we're dangerous." The woman tilted her head. "You are," she said simply. "More dangerous than you know." She stood slowly, looking out the broken window at the night sky. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They will come back, but next time, they will come prepared." The young man pushed himself up, his body aching. He looked at her, then at the stars beyond the smoke. His life of hunger, bills, and $3 pockets was gone. In its place was something terrifying, something larger, a war he never asked for, but one he was already a part of. He clenched the 3 bills in his hand until they crumpled tight. "Then we'll be ready," he said, his voice steady, sharper than before. The woman turned to him, and for the first time, she smiled fully. It wasn't the smile of a soldier. It was the smile of someone who had found an ally, someone who had found hope, and in that broken apartment, under the watch of fading red lights in the sky, a hunted alien and a broke human stood together, not as strangers, but as the first sign that maybe, just maybe, humanity would not bow. Humanity would rise, and the galaxy would learn to fear it.